Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gents. Thank you, Becky, for the announcement. I'd like to thank Orshi, Tamas, Gabi, and the rest of the organizing team for allowing us to present our results. And I think this is a really fascinating conference, and I wish it could continue. But I know it's a lot of work, a lot of funding, so that's just to wish. That's just to wish. So we're coming to more recent times, and we're moving away a bit from cremations. Today, I'd like to talk to you share with you some preliminary results of our ongoing project dealing with Roman period populations from the modern day Croatia. In this context, in the context of this conference, obviously about children, and to see, to try to reconstruct their child health, diet, and then lead exposure in the outskirts of the Roman Empire. Just a very brief introduction. So, as I've said, this is a project funded by the Croatian Science Foundation. Basically, the aim of the project is to see how the structural changes, social, political, social, that took place on the territory of modern Croatia, occurring as a result of Roman dominance, affected health, diet, as well as population structure of the inhabitants of the region. So the project itself consists of 5 work packages, but 3 are pertinent to the topic that we are going to talk today. Obviously, conventional pathology, primarily paleopathology, we want to see to reconstruct general health of these non-adults, to reconstruct their diet through bulk collagen, carbon and nitrogen stabilized analysis, but also to see if lead exposure had any effect on their health. When we started assembling the project, we planned to do 10 sites from the whole of Croatia, but now, about a year and a half in the project, we have over 20 sites already analyzed, and I think it's going to be more and more, with over 1,000 skeletons. So we are talking about in the Roman time, going now back in the Roman times. The map is a bit different than today's map. So we're talking about primarily provinces of Dalmatia on the south along the coast, but also continuing to the hinterland, Pannonia Savia, which is to the west, and Pannonia Secunda. So today I would like to talk to you, just give you very, very brief information about 4 sites from these provinces. As you can see, these 4 sites are labeled in these red squares. One site in each province, and also one site that is not basically part of the province, but it's part of Italian mainland, Regio Italia et Venetia 10, I think, or 11. So we'll see one site basically in this heartland of the Roman Empire, and 3 sites from the provinces, basically from the outskirts of the empire. So let's start with the first one, closest to the Roman period, empire heartland. This is a site of Sipar, ancient Saparum, known in literal historic sources from the 7th century CE. Today, the site is located on the small peninsula, about half an acre, near modern city of Umag, town of Umag, not city of Umag, and it's located on the westernmost tip of peninsula of Histria. Basically, when the day is clear, you can see Venice from this site, and it turns during tides, it turns into an island. So it's very nicely like a fortification and protective site. In the last 10 years, due to tides and because it's been eroded by the sea, rising of the sea level, the rescue excavations have been undertaken. And so far, about 16 inhumation burials have been recorded and found within the perimeter of the civilian settlement, because the settlement had civilian and military part. And you can see most of these burials have been radiocarbon dated to the 6th century and the beginning of the 7th century CE, based on stratigraphy finds, amphorae types, as well as radiocarbon dates. And as I said, burials were mostly made out of stone slabs or slates and amphorae. And on the bottom, you can see, unfortunately, on very, very bad scan of the picture, one subadult, non-adult burial in an amphora. So on the right-hand side, you have a list of all the burials, and you can see these are so far 16 burials we have exclusively subadult burials. Obviously, the whole site hasn't been excavated yet, so we cannot tell whether it was intentional, did we just stumble upon part of the cemetery that was just made for subadults, or it's just the state of excavation. So we have 18 skeletons so far, because there were 2 double burials. Of these, oldest individual was about 2.5 years old. So, and a lot of individuals, as you can see from the list, have not survived the birth process. Unfortunately, till the conference, we didn't manage to get carbon and nitrogen results. We were hoping to get them by now, but we were not that lucky. However, when we are looking at paleopathological analysis, there are really numerous indicators on each of the skeleton of poor subadult health. About 3/4 of the skeletons, and skeletons are quite nicely preserved. The preservation is quite nice, although the skeletons are quite small, shows some evidence of pathological changes. For example, 6 individuals show some kind of inflammatory endocranial lesions. Could be meningitis or something similar. We have at least 5 cases of metabolic disorders such as scurvy and rickets. We have 5 individuals with generalized active new periosteal reaction, and 4 skeletons that display active cribera orbitalia and or porotocyprostosis. And there are a lot of individuals basically that show co-occurrence of various pathologies. So not just 1, but 2 or 3. So just just a couple of examples of these. You can see porosity on the mandible and changes on the endocranial side of the skull. Second site is Ozalj. Ozalj is located in the province of, now we're going to the provinces, more to the outskirts of the empire. Ozalj is located some 50 today. This is a small town located close to the Slovenian border, about 50 kilometers southwest of Zagreb. The cave where the skeletons have been found is located from about half a kilometer from the medieval fortress old town of Ozalj. This is, as you can see, the cave made of limestone breccia. This is a relatively small cave, about 130 meters in length. Consists of the main hall and 3 separate branches. But the interest of basically it's not in the cave because the human burials have been found exactly at the entrance to the cave. So we have 2 complete burials. More or less complete burials, individual A, individual B, and we have only 1 find of a subadult, non-adult mandible that we couldn't put with none of these 2 individuals. There was a lot of, obviously, post-mortem disturbance, some also faunal remains, and direct radiocarbon date of one of the skeletons puts dating of these burials to the first half of the 3rd century, and you can see on the drawing basically the position of these skeletons. So we also did, in collaboration with Cosimo Post from University of Tübingen, we did ancient DNA, so we know that the younger adult was male, genetically male. The other individual was also a young boy, 6 to 8 years old. The boy didn't show any pathological lesions. However, on this young male, we have obviously whole range of lesions, very frequent in every archaeological population from prehistory to modern times. Carious lesions, very pronounced muscle attachments, but also very strongly expressed linear enamel hypoplasia on his anterior teeth. Fortunately, in the meantime, we were able to get carbon and nitrogen stabilized analysis, and it shows that all 3 individuals had almost identical diet. So it was diet based on combination of terrestrial C3, C4 plants with a very low intake of animal protein. So basically, they were probably surviving on some kind of local cereals. Moving from the inland more to the coast, to the eastern Adriatic coast, to the Roman province of Dalmatia, town of Trogir, Roman Hellenistic Tragurion, Roman period Tragurium. Today this is the urban community, in Roman times it was the urban community in the province of Dalmatia, very close to the capital of the province, Salona. In the town itself, as you can see, this is the modern town, and basically the settlement, antique settlement, Roman period settlement, was located on this island, and in the yellow along the road to Salona was communal necropolis, and in the red circle was urban villa. So we have 2 sites. For comparison, in the last 10 years, due to rescue excavations, we had over 100 burials in total from these 2 sites, both cremation and inhumation. However, we are going to focus on inhumation burials based on stratigraphy, finds, and radiocarbon dates dated between the 1st and the 4th century CE. So, combining these 2 sites, Roman urban villa as well as city necropolis, over half of the inhumation burials were non-adults, and of these about 40% were perinates and infants. Very few of the non-adults were over 2 years of age. Very similar to CPAR, about 3/4 of all non-adult skeletons exhibit some kind of physiological stress. So, and most of the pathologies that we were able to see were in active state. Again, a lot of subadults showed co-occurrence of various pathological changes. And again, nitrogen and carbon preliminary data suggests a marine food intake in otherwise autochthonous C3 type diet. Nothing surprising. Basically, they are on the coastline, so it would be surprising that they didn't eat any fish. And just a couple of examples of these perinates and neonates. You can see very strong expression of porosity on the mandibles, on basilar bones. So basically, we are talking about generalized inflammation. And this is burial 14. This is a burial that we published just 2 months ago, paternal twins, about 4 weeks old, so probably scurvy or some kind of generalized metabolic disorder. And the final fourth case that I'd like to share with you today, it comes from all the way to the outskirts. City of Osijek, we're going to the very east. Basically, the modern city of Osijek today lies on the Drava River, very close to present-day borders with Hungary and Serbia. It was a large colony during the Roman period, became Colonia Aurelia Mursa during Hadrian's reign in 133 AD, and it was basically one of the major urban centers close to Danube Roman military border, Roman limes. It was one of the seats also of the Danube fleet. You can see the excavations took place some 15 years ago, just south of the Drava River. So you can see this is the site today. Because these were rescue excavations, because the new university campus have been built, more precisely university library. So you can see this in red circle. So this is the site itself. We are going to talk about 2 skeletons. So this is very strange. Burial. This is burial in a used water well. Used water well is lined in bricks. We have 2 graves, 2 skeletons, grave 2 and grave 3, and the radiocarbon date for grave 2 is about mid or second half of the 3rd, beginning of the 4th century. So both individuals were probably just thrown into the well. The first individual, grave 2, it's a young non-adult, 9 to 11 years old, genetically, so it's a young boy. And grave 3 is also non-adult, slightly younger, 6 to 7 years of age, also genetically male. And both, what's very interesting, that both of the skeletons show evidence of active periostitis on the ribs. Some kind of pulmonary infection, TB, so we are not sure yet what we are talking about. Again, skeleton from grave 3 also shows very high, strong expression of linear enamel hypoplasia on the anterior teeth, as well as endocranial active lesions, possibly due to meningitis. It could be associated with these rib pulmonary infections. We cannot tell. And again, carbon nitrogen isotope values, as in the case from Ozal, indicate that they consumed a mixed C3, C4 based vegetal diet with very limited amounts of terrestrial animal proteins. Again, probably surviving on some kind of local cereals. Just the example of these ribs. So all the ribs have been affected by active periostitis. Okay, which brings us to the last part of the presentation. So we started with this, and this is going to be a bit of repetition from the data that Rebecca showed yesterday. We started with the Venner Grand project we got like a few years back because we wanted to check the possible role of lead poisoning in Roman period Dalmatia and Pannonia through the analysis of subadult teeth to get a precise picture of lead poisoning as a possible cause of poor subadult health and high mortality. As you could see, a lot of these children have been really ill. And we wanted wanted to see if we can establish possible correlation between increased lead levels in tooth enamel and the occurrence of certain pathological changes at a local but also regional level. I don't have to tell you about the lead, importance of lead in the lives of everyday Roman inhabitants of the Roman Empire, so I'm not going to talk about that. So we did a larger study within this project. We started with prehistoric samples from the early Bronze Age to late Iron Age, in total 24 sites, but we focused on Roman period sites between the 1st and the 6th century CE and ended with the early medieval period. We had about 215 so far analyzed teeth, about 3/4 are subadults, the rest are adults, and the pathological changes that we try to associate them with are obviously scurvy, rickets, metabolical disorders, cribra orbitalia, porotic hyperostosis, and periosteitis, the usual stuff. So these are the sites from divided into different chronological periods. Obviously, this map is going to fill, hopefully, in the next year or two. And this is the list of all the sites with chronology, number of samples. Obviously, for prehistory, the number of samples are still very small, so we want to increase the number of samples from the prehistory. And the character of these, we try to determine the character of these communities, whether they are rural or urban. And the sites squared in red are the sites that we've been talking about so far. So the sites of Trogir, Ozalj, Osijek, and Sipar. As you can see, Ozalj, unfortunately, we have only 2 samples, but so far they show like very, very, very low levels of lead poisoning, only 0.4 parts per million. However, when we talk about, so this is a rural site, and as you can see, Trogir Villa Rustica, to urban villa, and Trogir communal necropolis show extremely high lead levels. So this is basically the chronological chart from the early Bronze Age till the early medieval period, and I think very, very similar chart was provided a few years back. For the UK, they have a little bit 2 more recent periods till the industrial, so that's also our aim. But you can see a huge increase of lead values during the Roman period. So obviously, when we are talking specifically about Roman period sites, average lead levels per Roman period sites, obviously they are quite different. The lowest values were recorded in Ozalj, but we have only 2 individuals so far, 0.4 ppm. And for Trogir, we have almost 24 ppm, so these are really huge differences. And we could establish differences between rural and urban sites. So the average value for a rural site is 1.4 ppm, and for urban sites is 12.72. So you can see it's like almost 10 times more. And the average values per individual, there are huge differences. The lowest one is 0.13, and the largest one individual was almost 70 ppm. So huge differences. And what's interesting that about 80% of the individuals that have values over 1 ppm, 80% of the individuals have values over 1 ppm. So obviously, during the Roman period, the lead exposure was quite expressed, at least according to the preliminary data. And then we are coming to the charts, that graphs that Rebecca already mentioned and studied by Joanna Moore a few years back. So basically, the data that they got in their, I think they had sites from the UK, Romania, France, and Tunisia, if I'm correct. So basically, the results are almost the same. So in our study, subadults show significantly higher median values in comparison to the adults. We established a negative correlation between the advanced stage and the lead levels and lead exposure. So basically, the highest lead levels were recorded in fetuses or in neonates. And then we also compared lead levels, median values of lead levels in subadults with lesions and in those without lesions. And we established again significant difference. So obviously there is something happening here. So on the basis of the year and a half of the project and the results we got so far, I think we are very early preliminary conclusions. But I think based on the things that we have seen so far, we can tell that there was a poor general health of non-adult in both rural and urban communities across the region, at least when we are talking about provinces of Pannonia and Dalmatia. And the younger an individual was at death, the more likely were they to exhibit pathological changes consistent with metabolic diseases. As you can see, in certain sites, almost every subadult skeleton had some kind of indicator of metabolic disease. And perinatal and infant deaths, of course, could be related either to nutritional deficiencies exacerbated by weaning process, but also a lot of these non-adult deaths could be a result of synergistic effect of anemia, infectious diseases, inadequate diet, hygiene, malaria, because we know that until the 19th century, certain regions in these parts where they had malaria was endemic, so also one of the possible reasons. And when we are talking about lead, obviously we could see that subadults with lesions have much higher lead values than those without, and most of the subadults with values over 1 ppm, they did exhibit some kind of pathology. So it seems that lead was one of the major causes of these diseases. And obviously there are visible differences between rural and urban communities in terms of PB exposure. And I think we can sum it up in one sentence so far, that preliminary results show that lead poisoning had a negative impact on general non-adult health during antiquity in the region. However, we are still not in the half of the project, so we'd like to increase the number of samples, not just lead, but all of it, but obviously depends on funding, and also to try to expand beyond the borders of present-day Croatia, so to involve other neighboring regions. We are also now want to try to reconstruct the time of weaning by using incremental dentin analysis collagen to see whether there are any differences in those terms, but also to establish any possible sex differences in non-adults by using amylogenin analysis. We've been talking about that analysis for the last couple of days. And with this is a reconstruction of the fraternal twins from Tragurium by one student of ours, and with this I'd like to thank you.